I remember the day I first met Captain Don Walsh like it was yesterday. It was a crisp January morning in 1960 at the Naval Electronics Laboratory in San Diego. I was just a young technician, barely 25, fresh out of Oregon State, with salt in my lungs and a dream to see the ocean's last secrets. Don, on the other hand, already had the sea etched into his very presence. He was tall, confident, with a calm that could settle even the most anxious crew. A Navy lieutenant, but more than that, a visionary. That winter, the world would change. The greatest ocean descent. We flew out to Guam in early January aboard AC-121 Super Constellation. Tucked inside a giant container aboard the USS Wandang was the Swiss-designed, American-operated Trieste, a bathyscaphe unlike anything the world had seen. It looked like a submarine designed by Jules Verne, a fat, white balloon with a steel pressure sphere beneath it. On January 23, 1960, I stood on the deck of the USS Lewis as Don Walsh and Jacques Piccard sealed themselves inside the Trieste and began their descent in the Challenger Deep, the deepest known part of the Earth's oceans. The radio was dead silent for nearly 5 hours. At 35,797 feet, almost 7 miles deep, they touched the seafloor. Don later told me, it was like being on the dark side of the moon, only wetter. The pressure was over 1,000 times greater than at the surface. A plexiglass viewport cracked on the way down, but they carried on. They were the first humans to reach the Earth's lowest point. The longest deep dives and simulated records. In the years that followed, Don remained an icon in the Navy and the oceanographic community. I followed him into new missions, some undersea, others simulated. At the Naval Medical Research Institute in Bethesda, Maryland, we helped set the record for the longest simulated saturation deep dive. 28 days in a high-pressure chamber, breathing heliox, enduring conditions akin to 1,000 feet below the Gulf of Mexico. Later, I witnessed deep diving experiments in the Pacific off the coast of Hawaii, where new submersibles attempted dives to 20,000 feet for extended periods. The endurance and psychological toughness of those men. Unmatched. One diver, after 14 hours below, emerged with tears, not from pain but awe. We were visitors in God's cathedral. American ingenuity, diving inventions. Don always said the future was forged by inventors. By the 70s, I was working at Wood's Hole Oceanographic Institution in Massachusetts when Don partnered with engineers to pioneer new sonar imaging and dynamic positioning systems. We helped test the first remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, and advanced submersibles like Alvin, used famously to locate the Titanic later. One time in 1976, Don showed me a prototype of a self-riding escape suit designed for deep sub cruise. If this works, he smiled, even the ocean can't keep us. That suit, tested off the coast of California, later saved 3 men during a failed dive recovery. The wreck hunters and salvage kings. If the ocean had ghosts, Don was the man who could find them. In the early 80s, we joined a top-secret joint Navy private expedition to find the lost World War II submarine USS Scorpion. Using sonar and deep tow systems, we discovered her wreck at over 9,800 feet deep in the Atlantic. The deepest salvage operation of that time followed, retrieving sensitive nuclear material. But the biggest legend? The SS Central America, lost in 1857 carrying tons of gold. In 1988, explorers working off leads from Don's early maps found it at 7,200 feet. What we saw stunned us. Over 3 tons of gold coins and bars, worth hundreds of millions. I held a bar once, 22 pounds, stamped with an eagle, and coated with history. Porcelain came next. In 1999, we worked on a site off-Key West rumored to be a Chinese junk ship from the 1700s. We hauled hundreds of intact porcelain bowls, preserved like time, the ghosts of pirates and the future below. In 2004, Don helped advise NOAA on an effort to locate pirate ships along the Carolina coast. It was a strange turn, from bathyscaphes to buried treasure, but Don had a knack for reading ocean floors like books. The wreck of Blackbeard's Queen Anne's Revenge was the prize. Cannonballs, gold teeth, tankards still filled with silt. It felt like we had stepped into a time machine. The deepest scuba dive I ever recorded was by a Brazilian-American diver in 2005, over 1,000 feet. Don congratulated him personally. But the deeper truth, he said to me later, is how far we've come since 19... Now, I'm 90. I live near Cape Cod, where the Atlantic whispers to me each morning. I keep a piece of the Trieste hull in my study, a gift from Don when he retired. When people ask what it was like to ride alongside Captain Don Walsh, I tell them, it was like chasing the sun downward, into the darkest places, into history, into awe. He wasn't just a diver. He was an American hero who reached the deepest place on Earth and kept going.